for being here. My name is Suleima Dominguez. I'm 23 years old. I'm from Hunter College. Um, I came to the United States more than 15 years ago. The first dreamers were my parents when they migrated. I came when I was 7 years old, and ever since I knew my immigration status. I was scared to share it with my friends, with my teachers, and I'm still afraid to even share it mostly now. My parents migrated here to have a better future. They migrated and they saw that we had more opportunities, me and my brother. They brought us to this country for us to have the opportunities that they never had in Mexico. They want us to go to college, to continue with our education, and have a job that they never had, with a better opportunities. I faced a struggle mostly when I graduated from high school, when I was a senior, and I tried to apply for college. I was not planning to, but a college advisor one day asked me when I was gonna go to her office and submit my college application. That moment, I felt so anxious, I was sweating, and my mom always told me before not to tell anyone about my immigration status because the immigration officers would come to my house and send us back to Mexico. I told her I didn't know what was going to be her reaction. I was very lucky that she was supportive to me and helped me apply to college and to apply to certain scholarship that I was able to. It was very difficult. I couldn't apply at that moment because I didn't have a social security number. When I graduated from high school, and I was planning to go on the fall to BMCC because college tuition was more affordable for me at that time, I started working by selling food, helping my mom selling food in a restaurant. I was saving money, but then a month later, my father heard a devastating news where her mother went into a coma diabetic. We had to use the money that I had for my tuition and send it to Mexico for medical care. Months later, she passed away. I couldn't attend to college that fall, and I was so devastated. I kept working in order for me to save money to go to college. Once I returned to college, I started taking one class per semester. I felt frustrated. I thought I was never going to graduate. And then DACA happened. DACA changed my life. I was able to apply for scholarships, able to be a full-time, able to walk out of the streets without fear. DACA, at that moment when the announcement came up, I felt so happy. I was so happy. I felt like I had the same opportunities as any USA citizen. I was able to travel with DACA out of the United States after 14 years. I was able to graduate last year from BMCC, and now I'm a Hunter, about to graduate next year. Since the elections, I've been feeling scared. President Trump has been treating us with hate since the elections. He promised us that he was gonna determine end DACA, and yesterday his promise became true. As a dreamer and as a DACA method, I'm sad, I'm angry, and my dreams might be. I am too, and I'm not even a dreamer. I hope that you succeed. Thank you. I feel that my dreams can be challenging now. At the beginning, I felt happy, but now I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm tired of this political agenda that they use in documented. I'm tired of every political game that they use in us is humanizing, and it's not human what he did. It was very low, that he didn't give us the face, that he sent Attorney General Jeff Sessions to give us a speech of hate. But something that he and all his followers should know, that DACA meant it, and all the immigrant community are here to fight, and the fight is not over. The fight will continue. I want to thank the Attorney General for supporting the immigrant youth by taking this critical step by filing suit against Trump administration and on his decision on DACA. I also want to thank Make the Road and our member Martin Batalla for filing similar lawsuit against his racist administration. Thank you all.
¿Se puede?
Sí se puede.
¿Se puede?
Sí se puede.
¿Se puede?
Sí se puede.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. My name is Carol Mason and I'm the new president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And I want to thank you all. I want to thank the Attorney General Schneiderman for coming to make this announcement here, and I want to thank Chancellor Milliken. So yesterday when we heard the bad news, we met with our students and we've been planning to figure out how do we respond to this. So I'm so grateful that Attorney General Schneiderman is choosing John Jay College, a college dedicated to educating for justice, to make this great announcement here today. And I want to thank our students who are getting a lesson in educating for justice at this press conference today. And they are learning that there is so much support, not just in this room, but across the country, to make sure that they are successful. And we have a chancellor over the City University of New York system that is dedicated to our students and making sure that they have an equal opportunity to succeed, because it is because of your talent that we have hope for the future. You are our future, you are our leaders, and so I welcome this opportunity to have this announcement here so that you can see firsthand, hear firsthand, the support that you have, not just from the John Jay community, not just from the City University of New York, but also from the state of New York and across the country. And we have a huge champion on this issue in Chancellor Milliken, who has made it clear over the years the support that the system will give us to make sure that all of our students have an opportunity to succeed. So I am welcoming Chancellor Milliken to the podium to express his support for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Like so many other people in our nation, education leaders, elected officials, and people who care about social justice in this country, I'm deeply disappointed by the President's decision to end the DACA program. The City University of New York has always been a beacon of hope for immigrants and the great engine of social and economic mobility for new Americans in New York. The President's action is a threat to these ideals. It's a threat to hundreds of thousands of Americans who will be pushed into the shadows of our society and will be at risk of deportation from what is, in most instances, the only country they know and one that they love and contribute to every day. I stand with Governor Cuomo and Attorney General Schneiderman and the many other leaders across the country who are vigorously opposing an action that will crush the dreams of thousands of young people and tear apart their families. At CUNY, we never waver from our mission of offering all New Yorkers equal access to opportunity regardless of their status. For 170 years, CUNY has represented the ideals of a nation built on aspiration and ambition, educating generations of immigrants who have achieved their dreams and advanced our nation. The CUNY Board of Trustees and I fully support efforts to block, to reverse this misguided action, and to remain steadfastly committed to protecting and educating the thousands of our students who are DACA recipients. Since becoming Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman has established a long and successful record of fighting for equal justice under the law. In addition to supporting the rights of our students, whether DACA recipients or Muslim students affected by travel bans, Attorney General Schneiderman has built an impressive record of supporting and winning battles for New Yorkers. I welcome to CUNY and to John Jay College the Attorney General of the great state of New York, Eric Schneiderman.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us as we stand here together in support of the 42,000 Dreamers in New York State and over 800,000 Dreamers across America. Thank you, Chancellor Milliken, for your introduction. I'm honored to be here with you at CUNY, which is a long history of standing up for the rights of immigrant students, and at John Jay College with President Carol Mason in particular, which has a long tradition of standing up for justice and the rule of law. And what we are here about today is to stand up for our immigrant students, colleagues, family members, and to stand up for the rule of law. We're joined here today by representatives from a wide variety of organizations, including the New York Immigration Coalition, Make the Road New York, the Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrants' Rights, the Hispanic Federation, CUNY Citizenship Now, the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, our great colleagues in labor, who are strong advocates for immigrants' rights, all 32BJ, represented by Hector Figueroa, Henry Garrido, and people from DC 37, Local 78 of the Laborers, 1199 SEIU, and also the Working Families Party, the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, and Councilman Carlos Menchaca is also here. So I do want to take a moment because we're here today because we have to announce that we've just filed a complaint, and I do want to take a moment to thank my team of some of the best civil rights and appellate lawyers in America who worked all weekend and were up last night making sure that today's announcement would be possible. We understand what's going on in Washington, and we know that when bullies step up, you have to step to them and step to them quickly, and that's what we're here to do today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am the lawyer for the people of the state of New York, a state in which nearly a quarter of our population was born in another country. As the people's lawyer, I represent all New Yorkers, citizen and non-citizen alike. And we have a great tradition in New York since colonial days of immigration being the foundation and the lifeblood of this great state. The decision by the Trump administration yesterday to make an effort to rescind the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, is cruel, short-sighted, inhumane, and potentially devastating to hundreds of thousands of immigrants and millions of people who work with, study with, love, and care for them. Nearly 42,000 New Yorkers relied on DACA to come out of the shadows, provide confidential information, and then we're able to go on and live a full life and contribute to our communities. New Yorkers like Zulema, who just told you her story, we have another dreamer with us today, Suhe Orea, who crossed the border from Mexico when she was 3 years old. She now studies at Queens College and works at CUNY's Free Immigration Law Service. These are the dreamers we are here to protect. Ladies and gentlemen, by definition, dreamers play by the rules. Dreamers work hard. Dreamers pay taxes. For most, America is the only home they've ever known. They deserve to stay here. And that, thank you. And that is why this afternoon I'm announcing that New York has joined together with a coalition of 15 states and the District of Columbia, including Massachusetts, Washington, Connecticut, Delaware, New Mexico, Illinois, Hawaii, Oregon, Rhode Island, North Carolina, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Virginia, to file a legal action, which has just been filed in the Federal District Court for the Eastern District of New York, to try to stop this un-American, destructive effort. And I want to specifically thank my colleagues Bob Ferguson and his team in Washington and Maura Healy and her team in Massachusetts, who are critical partners in pulling together the facts and drafting this complaint. So today we are suing the federal government. We are suing to protect the rights of dreamers, the rights of the employers who rely on them, the schools they attend, and the rights of the millions of friends and relatives who love them. In the complaint we filed today, we lay out the significant economic harm DACA repeal will inflict on New York and states all across America, and we show that the effort to unwind this spectacularly successful program has been driven by the president's personal anti-Mexican and anti-Latino bias. Let me be clear, there is no good reason to end this program. This program is incredibly successful. DACA grantees work, 97% of them are in school or working. They contribute to society. They all have clean criminal records or they can't get into the program. This was done not to make us safer and not to comply with the Constitution. This was done with the discriminatory intent to expel hundreds of thousands of immigrants that today are making America great. And as we argued in our successful opposition to Trump's two discriminatory anti-Muslim travel bans, his own words show that he is biased against Mexicans. He launched his campaign by maligning Mexicans as rapists and drug dealers. He said a federal judge could not fairly oversee his Trump University case because the judge was of Mexican descent. During the campaign, he called protesters who carried Mexican flags criminals and thugs. And during a presidential debate, when pressed about his immigration plan, Trump said, quote, "We have some bad hombres here and we're going to get them out." Now, 78%, more than 78% of DACA grantees are of Mexican heritage. More than 93% are Latinos. This case is based on the fact that not only has the president and others in the federal government expressed a discriminatory animus for these actions, but it has a discriminatory, disparate impact on these communities. That is unconstitutional, and that's what we are taking to court today. Furthermore, we are not going to allow dreamers to be vilified and scapegoated by this administration. These are the people we want in the United States. As our coalition of attorneys general showed in our challenges to his travel bans, this kind of hateful rhetoric has no place in our political discourse, and it's certainly not a constitutionally permissible basis for public policy. DACA grantees, ladies and gentlemen, are the American dream. They go to school, they work, they pay $140 million in state and local taxes every year here in New York. One study estimates that rescinding DACA will cost the New York economy more than $38 billion over the next decade. But we are here today because we know this is about more than the economy, and it's really about more than just dreamers. It's about all of us and what kind of country we're going to have. Dreamers are our coworkers. They go to school with us and our kids. 3/4 of dreamers live with a spouse, sibling, or child that is a U.S. citizen. They are vital to the fabric of our state and to states across the country. But under this administration, as we've heard, immigrant families have been living in fear, and for good reason. Undocumented immigrants have been arrested as they drop kids off at school, tried to make their way to work, even tried to access health care. One was picked up outside an emergency hypothermia center on a frigid winter morning. We can't continue this way. And here in the state of New York, with the full support of the governor, we are here today to say we will not continue this way because we know immigrants are not the enemy. We stand with them as vital parts of our community, and I am committed to using every tool in my legal and constitutional toolbox to protect New Yorkers from bad public policy, overreach, and discrimination from the federal government. I'm proud to have been the first legal officer in the country to offer a legal roadmap and model legislative language to help cities and towns become sanctuary jurisdictions while complying with federal law, and communities across the state have been using that to craft new sanctuary policies, and it's in use in other states as well. Working with our state education commissioner, I've made sure all New York schools know that schoolhouses must be safe places for all children without regard to immigration status, and I have joined the call of many of us in law enforcement for ICE to stop arresting immigrants in our New York State courts, a policy that is cruel, self-defeating, and makes us less safe. But as a part of our broader fight to protect New York's vibrant immigrant communities, there is no clearer example of impermissible, un-American, despicable public policy gone awry than the effort to deport or have self-deport the more than 800,000 Dreamers who are here. These are people who have achieved, they are strivers who've succeeded, they are the best of America. Their families brought them here, and this is important to note. They didn't come here on their own. They were brought here as children, and they were brought here as children because their families sought the light of freedom. They came here because of the torch of justice that stands in New York Harbor and the tradition of openness that we represent. We cannot and will not betray them. And if the federal policies are not stopped, that were announced yesterday, it will be a betrayal. Immigrants came forward for DACA and gave confidential information with the promise it would not be used to deport them. Those promises were betrayed yesterday. They came forward with the promise that they could work here as long as they played by the rules, kept their nose clean, were contributing members of society. That promise was betrayed yesterday. New Yorkers, including all New York immigrants, deserve our full support. We will do everything in our power to ensure that immigrant families are protected throughout our state. And finally, I want to speak directly to the tens of thousands of New York Dreamers out there. We see you, we hear you, we care about you, and we have your back. America made a promise to you, and we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you to make sure that that promise is kept. The complaint we filed today is a critical step in seeing that that promise is kept. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming in support of Dreamers and everything that is going on right now. My name is Eduardo Garcia, and I am a senior here at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I am also a proud DACA recipient, and I am a proud the Dream.US Scholar recipient as well. I am here to tell you that I am outraged about the decision to terminate DACA. Yesterday, on 59th and 5th Ave, when many undocumented folks were rallied up, we received the news that the program was terminated, and it was devastating to see their faces. They were crushed, I myself included. It was hectic, it was emotional, and we were all very deeply sad and angry as well. I am angry right now. I still can't believe this is happening, and right now we have a chance to push for better. I wanted to outline some of the things that DACA has provided for individuals as myself. As a DACA recipient, not only have I been able to get a social security number and a work permit to work legally in this country, I've been given the opportunity to provide financially for my family. I've been given the opportunity to be part of internships that give back to the undocumented community. Internships, for example, the Safe Passage Project, the Northern Manhattan Immigrant Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We are, as DACA recipients, we are very productive members of society, and I want to outline that that ending this program will not only affect individuals as myself, it will affect our families and our communities, because we give to our communities so much. And I also wanted to point out that although it's important to fight for immigrant youth, for dreamers, it's important to remember that it's not only 800,000 immigrants that are in need of comprehensive immigration reform. It's 11 million. Our parents didn't bring us here because our parents brought us here to have a better life, to have better opportunities, and I'm sure they did not want to leave their mothers, their brothers and their sisters, and all of their family back in their country. No one would do that voluntarily. There's forces that push people out of their country to come to the United States.
Say it.
And we're more than a financial contribution to this country. We're human beings. We deserve dignity and we deserve rights. We deserve immigrant justice. I will say that again. We deserve immigrant justice. Again, thank you all for coming out in support today. Thank you all.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm Hector Figueroa. I'm the president of Local 32BJ. We represent about 165,000 members. 66% of them were born outside of the United States and are Americans by choice, just like the Dreamers. They deserve to be here. The Dreamers came here with their parents. Many of them had no understanding of what that decision entailed. And only years later, like you heard from Zuleima and Eduardo, they become aware of their condition and their situation. But they are just as American as our members are. They're just as American as anyone who has been born in this country, because they are giving back to our society. They are bettering themselves to give back to their community. And we are telling to our president today that they are here to stay. And we thank Governor Cuomo and Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, because when they made the promise that they would be looking after and defending these members of our community, they have shown it, they have done it. And Eric Schneiderman today, by suing the federal government, is telling us in New York State that New York welcomes the Dreamers and that New York will fight for each and one of them, because they are us, they are our family, they are our neighbors, brothers and sisters. We have your back, we're gonna stand with you, and we're gonna win this fight. I want to thank our brothers and sisters from labor here, Henry, Estela, everybody from DC 37, 1199, our community partners who are present. For us, this is very personal. I want to make sure we understand this. This is no longer just an abstract issue. Zuleima and Eduardo personified to you what this fight is about. And we cannot allow our country to turn into a country that is ungrateful to the people who want to be part of it. The politics of xenophobia, the politics of racism, the politics of using people's lives in a game like pawns of power that this administration have chosen to do, those politics need to be rejected by every American. And we ask we ask all of our civic leaders, all of our elected officials to support our efforts to fight for the dreamers. We need you to be with them, not just in words, but in deeds. You have to come out now and reject this decision and fight for the soul of our country, which is personified in the best of these young brothers and sisters. So again, we thank you, Eric, for leading this fight. We thank you, all of you, for standing with the dreamers. 32BJ, the labor movement, will be with you on this fight. We have been able to fight and win many, many times. When we fight, we win. This is no exception. But the win is much bigger than the dreamers. The win is for all undocumented workers. The dream is for all the people of color in this country. The win is for people, regardless of their color, who are working people. The win is for us to stand for our democracy, our rights, and the purpose of this great nation. Thank you so much.
Buenas tardes, familia. My name is Estela Vasquez. I represent 1199 SCIU, over 400,000 workers in Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Florida, and I am here to tell you that we are angry. We are angry, but no surprise. For that bad hombre sitting in the White House, he got there with a campaign of hatred, with a campaign of xenophobia, with a campaign against women, with a racist campaign, and he's just demonstrating, since his first day in office, what he's all about. He tried the Muslim ban, and we defeated him. Yes. He's now trying to stop DACA, and we are going to win. Yes. To Eduardo and Zuleima, just like my brother from 32BJ, Hector, said, we are here to stand behind you. We are here to stand behind not only 800,000 DACA children, DACA youth throughout the country, we are also standing behind 11 million undocumented workers that demand comprehensive immigration reform now. We are here to show our solidarity, our commitment, our support, and to ask every peace-loving person to stand with our dreamers, to stand with our workers, to stand for justice and against racism, against xenophobia, against anti-human policy, and to say, united we'll win, and we will win this fight. ¿Se puede? Sí se puede. ¿Se puede? Sí se puede. ¿Se puede? Sí se puede. Education. Not deportation. Education. Not deportation. Muchísimas gracias, compañeras y compañeros.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Choi. I'm the Executive Director of the New York Immigration Coalition. We are an umbrella coalition of 195 member agencies all across New York State. And we are here to give one message, and that is we reject the decision that the Trump administration brought down yesterday around DACA. You see, September 5th, 2017 will go down as a dark day in the history of this country. And the Trump administration's decision to end DACA is going to be seen as a black mark in America's historical register. The Trump administration, this really lays bare exactly what this administration is about. Its inability to put common sense policy in front of ideology, its incompetence in rolling out this policy, and the sheer insanity of ending this program that has provided DACA to 800,000 immigrants all across the United States and 50,000 New Yorkers. And frankly, the idea that these DACA recipients, these 800,000, these 50,000 in New York, are going to lose their protection from deportation, they're going to lose their jobs, they're going to lose whatever peace of mind and security that they have, that's incredibly infuriating. And we need to fight back tooth and nail to make sure that this does not take effect. And I got to say that it is so galling to me that the Trump administration is trying to hide behind the rule of law. This administration, the rule of law, this administration pardoned Sheriff Joe Arpaio 10 days ago. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, a man who made his career out of thumbing his nose at the rule of law. So now they have the gall to say that they respect the rule of law, and you have Attorney General Jeff Sessions out there making this pronouncement. But I'll tell you one thing, if they're going to talk about law, then we have the right man for the job, do we not? Yes. If this is a contest between Attorney General Jeff Sessions and New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, Eric, I got my money on you every single day of the week. You see, I knew Eric Schneiderman before he was Attorney General. When as a state legislator, he stood up for driver's licenses before it was cool or fashionable to do so, because he knew that driver's licenses was a matter of justice for all New Yorkers, for all immigrants, including undocumented immigrants. And as Attorney General, he has continued to be at the forefront of fighting for the rights of immigrants in New York, coming up with a sanctuary city policy and a guidance for all jurisdictions across New York State, making sure that ICE does not set foot in any of New York's courthouses to deport one more person from New York State. So Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has been on the forefront. He is a champion for immigrants in New York State, and we are proud to be behind you. And I want to thank the governor and I want to thank the Attorney General for fighting this fight in the courts. Because I tell you what, we are going to need to fight tooth and nail in the streets, in the halls of Congress, and in the courts. But I'll tell you something, immigrant communities have been under attack for decades. And you know what happens when we are under attack? We stand up and fight back. What do immigrants do when we are under attack? We stand up and fight back. When DACA is under attack, what does our AG do? We stand up and fight back. Attorney General, thank you for filing this lawsuit and for fighting for justice for Dreamers. We will be shoulder to shoulder with you, and we're going to prevail at the end. Thank you.
And we will now, if you will direct questions to Amy and identify yourself for members of the press.
We'll start with on-topic questions.
Mr. Schneiderman, is it your position that the Obama executive order is irreversible by Donald Trump under any circumstance whatsoever?
No, an executive order can be changed, but you cannot enact federal public policy if you have a discriminatory animus and a disparate impact on the group you're seeking to discriminate against, both of which are present here. You also have procedural and substantive obligations as to how you change federal policy. I note that Attorney General Sessions and the head of DHS offered varying rationales for why they were doing what they're doing. They were afraid of getting sued, or he just decided that this was unconstitutional. No court has ever struck down DACA. The fact that they saying maybe someone will sue us and that could happen is not really what's going on here. What's really going on here, as we've made clear in our papers, is an effort to force out hundreds of thousands of people who the overwhelming majority of New Yorkers and Americans believe should stay here. So yes, there are ways that comport with the rule of law, the Administrative Procedure Act, and the Constitution to change federal policy. That's not what they've done here, and that's not what they are trying to do here.
We're going to go to the back.
I can just follow up real quick. I just need to follow up real quick. Given that Donald Trump has said what he said, do you think that he can never reverse the executive order?
No, I just explained.
He can never reverse it.
No, there are a variety of claims. You can't violate the Constitution, which requires not just animus but impact, and there are also other statutes and laws that govern changing federal policy. Look, we've been through this we went through a similar exercise with him regarding the anti-Muslim travel ban. That same question was debated. I think the courts made clear what the standard was there. It's not that you can never change public policy, but that you can't discriminate against people. And I would note, because it was discussed earlier, that the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in that case made a very clear statement that, and I'm reading this, the protections provided by the Fifth Amendment's Due Process Clause are not limited to citizens. They apply to all persons within the United States, including aliens, regardless of whether their presence here is lawful, unlawful, temporary, or permanent. All people present in this country have rights. Happen to, in Congress? Well, ultimately, as several of our friends and colleagues have stated, we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. This is not just about the Dreamers. And I'm encouraged by some statements I note that Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham, senators from both stated that they wanted to undertake a bipartisan effort to tackle this issue again. It has been a frustrating decade and a half or so of trying to get action on this area, but this, I think, is going to provide more impetus. And as Hector said, we have to be in the courts, we have to be in the streets, we have to be in the halls of Congress. At the end of the day, we do need immigration reform, not just for the Dreamers, but for our immigration system as a whole, and for all of us in communities that depend on immigrants. And this is something I want to emphasize. As with the travel ban case, in this case, in New York, the great majority of leaders in the business community are with us on this. The business leaders of New York know that shutting down immigration, getting rid of the Dreamers, is bad for everyone. It's not just bad for them, it's bad for us all, and it's bad for our society.
Questions on this topic? Laura? Can you just quickly, in lay terms, explain the various causes of action that the grounds that you're filing this lawsuit on?
Well, I'll try. The core of this is you can't enact a public policy based upon a discriminatory animus. And even if you give a neutral justification or a policy looks neutral on its face, courts, as in the travel ban case, will look behind what's really behind it. So that is where the due process rights that the Ninth Circuit wrote about that I just mentioned come into play. There also are requirements that we think are enforceable, that DHS has to keep confidential the information that the Dreamers provided to them with repeated assurances it would be kept confidential and not used to deport them. They've changed the rules on advanced parole for travel, and they have not failed to comply both substantively and procedurally with the law that governs changing federal administrative procedures, which is called the Administrative Procedure Act. So I'm not sure that's sort of lay terms, but it's procedural and it's substantive, but the heart of this is the discriminatory intent and discriminatory impact.
If they went back and went through the administrative procedure process, wouldn't that just mean that this would delay implementing the rescinding of DACA instead of?
We'll see what happens. We're just getting into court. They just did this yesterday, so we'll get in front of a judge and we'll see where we go with that.
Members of the media? You mentioned that DACA has never been struck down by a court. Has it ever been approved by a court? Has it ever been tested?
There is some law on this. There is a case where another program related to DACA, DAPA, and the DACA Plus was struck down by the Fifth Circuit, and that's what some in the administration are hanging their hats on. But there was another case called Arizona Dream Act Coalition v. Brewer, in which the court stated, and this again was an appellate court, the only appellate court that's ruled directly on this, speaking of the Secretary of Homeland Security's authorization to enact and enforce all laws relating to immigration and naturalization. As a part of this authority, is well settled that the Secretary can exercise deferred action, a form of prosecutorial discretion whereby the Department of Homeland Security declines to pursue the removal of a person unlawfully present in the United States. That's the strongest language of an appellate court on this issue. So once again, we reject these pretexts advanced by Sessions and Duke for why they are pulling the plug on a clearly successful, overwhelmingly popular program. This is done, we say and we lay out in our complaint, because 78% of the DACA grantees are Mexican, 93% are Latinos, and the administration has over and over again evinced an unconstitutional, discriminatory animus towards those groups.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.